Hey, how's it going? So Dan here at the Evolving Music blog, answering part 2 of a question that came from a beginning piano teacher. And part 1 kind of answered what do you do with a student's first lesson. I kind of went through some of the things that I like to do. And the second part is she was just asking more generally, like, she's a beginning piano teacher and doesn't quite know where to start. Like, how do you tell what level a student is at, or how do you know what to do with them at all? And I'm going to try to answer that, hopefully in a way that's helpful. And first I'm just going to say that I definitely tend to use the method books a little bit as a guide, especially with younger students like 6 through 12 or 13. They do provide a great way of having some linear progress and introducing new concepts one by one. So I definitely, if you're totally not sure what to do after this video, if this video makes no sense, just stick by those method books. They're definitely, there's some flaws in them, but I think overall they're written in a pretty logical manner, where if you just stick with what they're giving you week by week, you should be fine. But here's some of my thoughts to add on top of that. Every student that I have, I'm always thinking of just this basic framework of where they should be, of their learning. And so I'm always thinking of music, and in terms of learning music, as you have notes and rhythm, and then you have all this other stuff. And I know that might sound simple, but I'm going to try to explain this in a way where it's been very helpful to me. So if you're not quite sure how to judge or gauge the level of a student, the first thing I'd recommend is take it back to notes. Can they identify notes in the book at all? Can you point to a note and can they name it? If not, you might want to back up further so they understand the idea of lines in spaces and the circles going on certain lines and spaces, and just the idea of a staff and a grand staff with a top and a bottom. You might want to try some games with that. So we're just talking about identifying notes out of a book, not playing the notes on the piano, just like reading them out of a book, like you'd read any book. That's the first thing I do, is make sure they can do that. If they can't do that, then that's where you begin. Then if they can identify the notes successfully in the book, you want to make sure that they can identify and find them on the piano. And if they can name them in the book, but they can't find them on the piano, then you want to put the book aside and you want to actually spend some time explaining a little bit more, like how to find the notes and where they are on the piano. Maybe like you want to make sure they know the idea of middle C, and like how the black notes help them find the all the white notes, and so on and so forth. So if they can do that, if they can see a note in the book and they can play it on the piano, then you want to throw in fingers and maybe like find a song that you're guessing might be at their level, and see if they can see a note in the book, make sure that they know the right note on the piano, and then know which fingers to use. So this might throw in the idea of like, do they know what hand position is at all, like C position, middle C position, and you're just taking it kind of one step at a time. So see the note, know the note on the piano, and then know which fingers to use and know where your hands go on the piano. And I like to break it down in these steps, because if they have trouble anywhere along the way, you can stop along that path and isolate and work on that one thing that they're having trouble with, instead of thinking like, oh, my student can't read notes. Well, that's not a very actionable diagnostic, really. I hate to sound all techie or whatever, but okay, the student can't read notes, but what part of that specifically are they having trouble with? And I think breaking it down those steps really helps. So this is just notes. We haven't tried to actually throw in any execution of those notes or any playing of those notes in anything that resembles rhythm. And that's kind of the second thing that I like to try to gauge. So, okay, if they're knowing the notes and knowing where they are on the piano, can they read rhythm? Can they play in rhythm? Do they know what rhythm even is, all right? So if now you're trying to gauge that with a new student of yours, put notes completely aside take away the notes in the book and take away the piano, and just see if they can keep a steady beat. And that's your first test. And if they can do that, then see if they know about the idea of quarter notes, half notes, whole notes. See if they can count a steady beat while they clap quarter notes, while they clap half notes, and while they clap whole notes. And maybe you want to write out a few different rhythms to see if they can clap those rhythms all while counting steady beat. And this is one thing that I think teachers overlook a little bit is we go, oh, they're clapping quarter notes and half notes and they're doing good, but we never, I thought somebody's here, we never really check to make sure that they're keeping an internal steady beat all along. So you might have a student that makes it totally fine through primer lesson book, level 1 lesson book, even level 2 lesson book, and all of a sudden they get to eighth notes and you realize they really haven't been keeping a steady beat all along, even though it seems like they've been playing the rhythm correctly, and they might have, but you want to try to really check that they can keep a steady beat and do a rhythm at the same time. So if they've gotten to that point, if you've kind of checked all that and made sure that they can do all that stuff, then you want to try to get them to put these two things together, the notes and the rhythm. And again, I know this sounds kind of like elementary, but it's so powerful to try to like gauge where a student is at by taking all these pieces apart and testing every single one of them. So what you do is, again, you try to find a song that maybe suits their level, what you think their level is, and see if they can actually execute the notes in rhythm, putting those things all together. So now you're checking that all those things that they can process all those things all together. And really, with any student at any level, beginner, intermediate, even a high school student or an adult, I'm always gauging their level by their fundamental understanding of notes and rhythm. All the other stuff is what I like to call other stuff. Articulation, dynamics, theory, ear training, sight reading, all that stuff is wonderful, and you absolutely want to be teaching your students that. But I wouldn't suggest trying to add in the idea of staccato and legato and tenuto before you really know if they can do eighth notes versus 16th notes versus dotted eighth notes and dotted quarter notes or whatever. So that's how I gauge the level of every student, no matter what age they are, how long they've been playing, is by how well they understand the basics, notes and rhythm. And like I said, all that stuff comes afterwards. So you don't want to do ear training. How can you do ear training for picking out seconds versus thirds if they can't read those on the piano? Or how can you throw in staccato on quarter notes if they can't keep a steady beat? So I definitely recommend kind of this approach of very simple and working down to adding in the more fun, complicated, interesting things later on. So hopefully that all made sense and kind of helps you out a little bit. I know it can be a little overwhelming as a brand new piano teacher. I remember when I was first teaching piano, sometimes you have no idea what to do. Should I show them scales? Should I show them arpeggios? And it's one of those things you really definitely learn a lot of this by experience and as you go along. But definitely stick by those method books. Try to remember this framework, notes, rhythm, and then other stuff, and just have fun, and I really think you're going to do just great. So hopefully that helps. Again, this is evolvingmusicedu.com, and thanks a lot for watching, asking, and hopefully listening and not falling asleep by this point. Okay, thanks.